Welcome back to TMZ Live. There is something new that Congress is doing that we haven't seen them do before, and that is get into filmmaking. They actually had a premiere for a movie that clearly is trying to address an issue in America that we've heard a lot about lately, and with good reason. Just talking about the economic disparity, the wealth gap in this country, which seems to be growing every year. So the premiere for this film, which, by the way, they managed to get Sarah Jessica Parker as the narrator for the film. We're going to play a little clip for you here. Then we'll be joined by Congressman Jim Himes, who was heavily involved in the production of this film. It's called Grit and Grace, the fight for the American dream. Here is a little clip.
In June of 2021, Democrats and Republicans in Congress came together to study and propose solutions to our growing economic divide.
In the wealthiest country in the world, most people are struggling economically.
People are trying to move up, and often we see things get in the way of that.
Here are 3 stories that capture the ambition, hunger, passion, and love that define resilience.
So this is interesting. I mean, I have so many questions about why Congress felt, by the way, this was funded by Congress, bipartisan funding to make this film. Clearly, there's a feeling that this is going to be an effective way to get the word out. So joining us right now, Congressman Jim Himes from Connecticut, who's also now producer, executive producer, director of this film. Congressman Himes, welcome to TMZ Live.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this congressing thing I do, I'm just doing it to pay the rent while I, get a chance to direct.
We have a saying here in Hollywood that everybody wants to direct. That's their next job. You actually did it. So tell us, what was the impetus for this? Because this is different for Congress. Instead of making speeches on the House floor, you decided to put this together in a documentary.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not instead of, we're going to make our speeches on the House floor. And in fact, we produced a traditional report. But, when I was asked by Speaker Pelosi to chair this committee on economic disparity, I decided, we're going to do this a little differently. I could throw all kinds of facts and figures at you that, you might be impressed with, the fact that 50 American families control more wealth than the bottom half of our population. I could throw stats like that at you all day long. But what I know is that, when you start telling people's individual stories, as we have done in this film, we tell the story of a black man by the name of Joseph in UNC, who's in North Carolina, who's teaching in a college, even though he, for years, didn't finish college, of a recent immigrant who built a magnificent tamale business in Florida, of a couple that is raising autistic boys in Appalachia and West Virginia. Those stories are just so moving. And, I'm old enough to know that you can appeal to somebody's head, but if you really want to urge action, if you really want to galvanize, you're going to appeal to people's heart. And this documentary is about telling stories where you see dignity, you see hope, you see optimism in the face of unbelievable struggles. And I think we've managed to do that. And I hope it has an effect, not just on my colleagues, but on the American public.
Well, it sounds like a compelling documentary with some great stories. It's available on YouTube, so widely accessible. You have Sarah Jessica Parker attached to it, who's going to be narrating it. So sounds interesting. But my question is, in a world where we're living in the renaissance of television, people have tons of options to watch different things. What's your plan to get people to sit down and watch it?
Yeah, well, Sarah Jessica Parker is going to help in terms of her, star quality. And then the interesting thing about her is, in this documentary, she's not Carrie Bradshaw. Sarah Jessica Parker, when she was a little girl, experienced some meaningful poverty. But we're going to take this around the country. My colleagues who maybe want to do is sit down and talk about economic disparity, but don't want to put people to sleep with conversations about, tax credits and poverty lines. My hope is that this will be a tool that people can use, not just to have the conversation, but to have the conversation in a context of empathy, where rather than being suspicious and angry at people who don't look like us, we see the dignity and the commonality of their stories with our own.
Congressman, I'm going to coin a phrase here. I think I'm coining it. I don't think I've heard it before. Is this the Netflixification of America, that so many people get their information from documentaries that they see on Netflix and other streaming platforms? And I'm just wondering if that was what was going through your head, where you said, you know what, I've seen enough of these things, and people really do learn from them, that this is a more effective way to get the word out.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would. I'm glad you coined the term, but I'm not sure I would use it. This was more. This was more for me about, how can Congress actually speak to real people? I've been around here a little while, right? And we give speeches on the floor with lots of talking points. We produce reports with dense policy pros. Let's face it, that doesn't speak to people. I promise you, this 30-minute documentary is going to speak to people's hearts. Last night when we showed it in the archives, I looked around the audience. And there were a lot of tears streaming down people's faces. And then at the end, people were just so happy about the stories that they had just learned.
I hope some of those tears were from legislators who are watching this, because I think some people will watch this and say, okay, we get it, but what are our legislators going to do about this? Or is the goal that citizens watch it and then demand more of their legislators?
Great question. My inspiration for this, and I'll tell you this, I've said it elsewhere, was as much January 6th and what happened in this building on January 6th as anything else. What happened on January 6th was a massive failure of empathy, a massive triumph for stereotyping each other. There were people in this building who wanted to kill me, and by the way, wanted to kill Vice President Mike Pence. The only way you get your head into that space is if you have stopped thinking about me or Pence or whoever as anything other than a stereotype, as a traitor, as a Bolshevik Democrat, as a MAGA person. As long as we think of ourselves in those terms, we're in a lot of trouble. This movie is going to force people to think of individuals with their stories. So this is as much about trying to restore some sense of commonality, of the fact that we're all in this together, and we ought to think hard about offering each other a hand, as it is about being didactic and telling people what they should do.
People should check out this film. It is available now on YouTube. And who knows, Congressman, I don't know, maybe we're going to see you at a big premiere here. If your directing career takes off, you never know. You might be out here in Hollywood.
In my business, it's always good to have a plan B.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for being with us, Congressman.
Thank you.
Grit and Grace, Fight for the American Dream, available now on YouTube. Everyone should check that out.